Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology and the AstroInklings for February with my friend Tam sitting here next to me this morning. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax. We have a lot to talk about today, although I would say February, Tam, isn't as intense as some of the months have been, but it includes some of the biggest things of the year for us to be aware of. So welcome to you, Tam. Thank you so much for being here with me this morning.
Happy New Year to everybody, because we didn't do this together in January. So happy New Year, everyone. And I'm excited to talk about February. And yeah, there's like some really key stuff. Eclipse season is upon us again. And
Again.
yeah, again, like there's just so much juicy stuff in February. And I'm so grateful that some of the intensity that we experienced in 2025 is in the past.
Well, and January was such a flashpoint month. I mean, so many things that we just entered into the calendar year, with just bunches of intensity. And every day seemed like, it was like, oh, like you're being whipped around, with the different things that are going on. And yet February doesn't feel that way. Right. So we're going to launch into maybe the feel of February, and maybe we'll take on some of the biggest things. First, I'm going to have to see how this is going to look because, okay, it did automatically do that. Do you see that chart?
Sure do.
It's our calendar of February. A slimmed down version, as I did not put up every transit that was going on. But even the slimmed down version, if you look at that, it looks like a busy month.
Yep.
And it starts out right away, right? February 1st, coming this Sunday, the full moon in Leo.
Yikes, here we go. We're off to a running start.
Yep. I think, rather than January's chaos or intensity, February brings a pressure to shift our points of view, to make the changes in our lives before we get to the new beginning energy of our zodiacal new year that's coming in March, the following month. Mm-hmm. So, how do you stay emotionally true to yourself and balanced while, you're standing in a rapidly shifting world collectively,
yeah.
right?
Right. Great question.
Right. Great question. And this full moon kind of starts it out, because anytime we have a full moon, we have a polarization. And I'm going to shift to the full moon here picture in 1 second because it shows us really what the heck is going on. Can I add that one to the stage instead? There we go. So if you all look up at the top, the very top chart up there is the full moon, which happens on February 1st. At 5:09 p.m. Eastern time. So that will be 2:09 p.m. if you are on the West Coast with me. And if you look at it, you can see that we've got this polarization, but it's not just the sun and moon. Mm-hmm. It is Mercury, Venus, Mars, Pluto in some ways is involved here. And did I already say Venus, Mars, Mercury, Sun, the sun? Yeah. And they're all being held by the moon on the other side. Mm-hmm. So over here, can you see my cursor moving around, Tam?
No, we can't see it. Okay. It's lopsided, but you can see where you've done all the writing in pink. If everyone looks at that, you can see how heavy it is there.
Yeah. And I also want to call your attention to just above that is the North Node. Mm-hmm. So this particular moon also kind of sets the stage for us to be looking at, well, where do we want to go? Like, what do we have to release? What do we have to let go of? How do we have to change up in order to feel more stabilized and, more in our foundation? And if we start to look at the energy of the two signs involved, Pluto Aquarius and Leo, Leo's very heart-centered. Mm-hmm. It's the energy that's deeply relational, but it's also very much here, right in the heart. And it wants heartfelt expression. It wants to feel recognition and warmth and that creative authenticity that comes when we really are following our love and our heart's desires. And yet it stands all by itself in Leo.
Well, another Leo quality that you have to admit to is the drama.
Mm. The personal drama in this
The
case, because it's
personal
the moon.
drama. Right. Right.
And the drama of the people collectively. So if we're looking at this chart, it's not for a person, it's for an event. And an event is set for an area of the world. And this is set for Washington, D.C. So what we see then, the moon can represent the collective people, not just you personally and me personally, but all of us personally. And that leads some drama emotionally with people, with the collective. And I think, that is something that we're seeing already, and something that likely the full moon will kind of bring maybe to some kind of an apex point. I'm not really sure.
That definitely came across my consciousness that this moon will probably, well, we already know that, the full moons ramp up people. And here we go with it affecting the group. Aquarius, you think of the group and you think of the future, and people are fighting for the future, right? That's what everybody's arguing about. It's going to be really interesting how this plays out, especially with all those personal planets having such an impact on this moon.
Yeah.
And the big outer planet, Pluto, well, not the powerful outer planet, Pluto.
Yeah. Who's technically like in the later third degree, and that puts him within 10 degrees of that moon and 10 degrees of the sun. And, with Pluto, we give him an orb of up to 15 degrees. So no matter how you pack it up, he is, involved in all of this. And so there's this, axis of tension between these two signs, right? The Leo moon says, see me, feel me, let my heart speak. And sometimes if it's not heard, it's drama, right? The drama to call attention to something. But then the Aquarius stellium, right? All of those are inner planets with the exception of Pluto. And it says, step back and detach. And it says, think about the future. It says, see, ahead by being objective and, stepping back. So I think for all of us, we may feel a little bit emotionally charged, maybe exposed or overly tender. Maybe triggering some compassion. I don't even know how we can become more compassionate at this point, because it seems like that's one of the things lacking out there in the world, but in some respects. And a desire to express yourself, right? To be able to say what you want to say. And the sense that your personal feelings are very important at this point, right? They're being weighed against the collective realities. Like when you look at the outer world, and you probably get this too. We're in a position to hear a lot of the struggles from the individuals that are around us. And I think this full moon really says something about having to choose a side. Like, how can we hold the polarity, but without having to abandon either truth, right? There's always these kernels of truth in each side. And how can you do that without abandoning yourself or abandoning others or making it so much more polarized?
You know what I'm hoping for? And me, the damn rose-colored glasses, like Aquarians have that capacity to speak their truth, even if it's different, and just kind of be aloof about the response. I feel like they're very, like, the detachment could work to our favor under this moon. I don't know. There's that potential because, you can't battle with an Aquarian. They're not that way, really. They're just like, nope, this is my point of view. Bye. That's how I feel,
But, on the other hand, that does lend them to be a little bit self-righteous at times and to block the other point of view. That's where the Leo moon comes in and says, oh, well, let's look at both sides of this story or this thing. But the preponderance of the planets, as you said, it is in Aquarius. And, hopefully it does move us forward in some way, right? That we can move beyond. But in your own personal life, you all out there have this across Leo and Aquarius in your own personal charts.
Yep.
So you have to know, in your place, in your chart, where is this happening? In this chart, if it were a person, it's across the 1st and the 7th house. So we would know this has a lot to do with relationships and agreements between people and your own personal heart. And how is it that you are balanced or not within your relationships? But, that's only if you have it in the 1st and 7th. Others, there are other houses that this can happen in and other areas of your life. So if you need help with that, Tam and I stand by for asking or answering those kinds of questions for you. Anything else you want to say about the full moon?
Not at all. We covered it.
Yes. So that is on Sunday. And then when we get, let me change this out now and put back up our calendar.
We're looking at Tuesday. We
There we
have
go.
got Uranus stationing direct in Taurus. Yahoo! Here we go. And maybe our value systems and our money, maybe they're going to pick up the pace now. Wouldn't that be nice?
I don't know that that's going to happen, Tam, because one of the patterns of the month of February that really stuck in my craw was the fact that all of the inner planets are going to come into a square with Uranus throughout the month. All of them. Any of those planets in Aquarius right now are going to, as they move deeper into the sign, they're going to come into the square. Yep. And that brings up a challenge, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be challenged and not get solved. There are solutions available. It's just a matter of whether we're willing to go that route or not. But you're right. This is intensely financial and value driven, and asking us to really look at our relationships and, you know, how do we advance ourselves through, you know, the Uranus and Taurus energy that we're quickly finishing up, right? By April, he's back in Gemini for 7 years. So what are we cleaning up here? So what are we cleaning up in the economy? What are we cleaning up in our own personal finances? And are you living according to your values? And resources come into this, and relationships come into this. So it's your essence comes into this, because the sun will also square Uranus. Your communication, your mind, your actions. Are your actions aligned? Are you walking your talk? So Uranus, though, turning direct, unsticks things.
Right. That's the key that I'm getting at. Like, things will finally begin in motion. You know, I have to tell you, in my coaching practice over the last month, it is remarkable how the value system topic has been prevalent. People are showing up, and they're people who are missing their own values, either don't know their own values, haven't aligned with them, or are being beaten down and not standing up for what they value. So it's been very interesting.
Yeah, I bet it has. And, you know, I hear the same things from people, and it's part of what's happening for everyone at this point. And I think there's even an exclamation point on that exact same thing because of Neptune's move this week back into Aries, where he will be until 2038.
Right.
And in Aries, it's all about your identity and your sovereignty and who you are, who you will allow yourself to be, you know, how you call in your own personal power. So it's an interesting time, to be sure. And it's not surprising that there's a lot of people that are struggling with who they are and what they do and their value and all of that. Right. The other thing about Uranus turning direct, though, is it also stresses the nervous system. Uranus rules the higher functioning part of the mind. And so we can at once be receiving revelations and epiphanies from, you know, our intuition or higher self. But at the same time, as that energy filters into the body, it can, you know, hit the nervous system. So some people may feel, you know, that there's anxiety or nervous tension and things like that during this period of time. So I would say for everybody, pay attention to your body. What is your body telling you? If it says rest, do it. If it says go, do it. If it says drink more water, do it.
That's a really good advice. I hadn't even really thought about the nervous system being so highly charged by Uranus. That's a great point.
Especially the day or 2 or 3 right around that move. And that is on February 3rd. So you might even be starting to feel it this week. And because I think he's probably already come to his stationary point. And then as he, you know, makes that move forward and starts to gain speed, you may have another week or so. So it does kind of mean that some people may be feeling utterly like pressurized with stress. And the best thing to do then is to treat your body well, right? To give it the rest it needs, take a break, take a walk. If you're not snowed in, seems like half the country's snowed in at this point.
Or snowed in.
Yeah. But we also might need to pay attention to financial insights that we get.
Yep.
quiet realizations about what no longer feels sustainable in your life, so that you are willing, especially with the full moon having just been 2 days before, what can you release?
Mm-hmm.
What can
I
you
think
let
that's brilliant. And again, is really reminding me of all the people who have shown up in front of me, and they're realizing, they're totally saying that what you just said, like I'm having this realization that I don't want to do this anymore. It's not in alignment with what I value. And those
and
words were said to me. Like, that's so amazing how it plays
yeah.
out.
As above, so below, right? When the
Yeah.
words are being said above, or the archetypal energy above it's impacting all of us below. And again, right, this is, you looking at, well, where is Taurus in my natal chart?
Mm-hmm.
And where is Aquarius in my natal chart? Because those are likely the two areas of life where these things are changing.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing for us to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And, the changes are already apparent. The day Neptune moved into Aries, my husband was offered early retirement. He had already given notice to retire June 12th, because then I would be 65 and I wouldn't have to worry about medical, right? And his boss said to him, what would it feel like? Get this, his boss says this. What would it feel like to wake up every morning and know that you don't have to go to work, but that you're still getting paid?
Oh,
My husband's like, well, what are you talking about? Well, he's offering him to retire, say like April 1st-ish, but get paid all the way to June 12th.
oh, how does it get any better than that? What else is possible?
I know. I was like, shocker. But those are the kinds of things, right? It does help us to realign our values when we have something like that comes up, right? And that was pretty striking, I thought, to have as Neptune moved into Aries. And, my husband has a Libra rising, so that Aries would have been in his 7th house of agreements, contracts, rewriting the contracts, right? Rewriting the agreements. So
that's great.
I'm not saying everybody's going to have that kind of thing happen, but certainly, some openings for doing things differently that help you realign are huge during this period of time.
Sometimes astrology just slaps you in the face.
I know. Just like after I hurt my knee this time, I realized how many Saturn transits I was under, and all Saturn rules the knees.
Yes.
I'm like, okay. But, I was too busy at the time to pay attention to my own chart.
Mm-hmm.
So learn that lesson. Okay. So this is where something, maybe Uranus going direct, is where something that's been stalled in your life, or where something has been unresolved since late summer when he turned to retrograde, can suddenly become solved or resolved. And, sometimes that comes out of the blue, right? Where you don't expect it and it's like awesome. And other times it might be a place where it shows you that where you need to change, right? Where you need to work in a different way. So just be open to however that shows up, but realize that it's not punishment. This isn't a punishment for people. This is a righting of the ship, of your own ship, right? Steering you in the next right direction. All right. So February 5th, we start the squares. This is like this big signature for the whole month.
Yeah.
All of those Aquarius planets, one after the other, come into a square with Uranus, now direct. So this is where things really begin to change, I think, in people's lives. And there's stress around it because it's a square. But it's also, squares are, they're very useful. Like, without squares, would we ever move forward? Right? So the first one, of course, is Mercury in Aquarius. He is the first to square Uranus and Taurus. This is the mental lightning strike, right? Boom. It occurs to you that this is how this should work, or do this, or go that direction, or, something disruptive in a conversation that you might have with someone, or a breakthrough that arrives before you really feel ready for it. That happened to me in May, when it was like, oh, buy an RV now and move. Like, I didn't expect that. So, and sometimes there's news that comes. This is Mercury. So Mercury rules information, and it could be news that kind of rattles your sense of stability and safety or security. But the realization should be that this is all working in your favor. This is not, you being punished. And the squares can often feel jarring. It can be like, oh, but then you realize, oh, this is liberating, right? Especially if you've been clinging to something, an idea, or something that you do every day that you don't need to be doing. Again, depending on how this is playing out in your own personal chart. So what do we get to do? Slow down,
Slow down.
right? Don't knee jerk react.
Right.
Ground your nervous system. And, for some people, that's simply, getting outside and putting your bare feet in the grass, or, walking on the beach, or sleeping a little more, or eating chocolate. One of my favorite ways to ground.
Mm.
Doing things that serve, to ground your body. And then, let the insight land before you choose to do anything with it.
Responsive, not reactive.
Good one. Very good. Yeah. So Mercury, the first of those planets to do that with us. And then the very next day, he moves out of the sign of Aquarius and into Pisces. It's like he drops this last message and then moves on to a new sign.
Right on.
And then, that changes up the whole of the energy. It softens in Pisces.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, Mercury in Aquarius has a very future orientation to communication and to viewpoint. Once we get to Pisces, it gets more spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And it shifts from the logic of the air sign Aquarius to more of the intuition of the water sign Pisces. And that changes up, I think, how we deal with information and how we, work through the things that come up in the mind. What do you think about that?
I think that makes perfect sense. And like, what a nice opportunity to, whatever happens with that jarring information or insight, like here's a chance to sort of integrate it, right?
Yeah.
To kind of go inward. Pisces is more that way. I love it. I think it's a great opportunity to just sink in. So wait 24 hours after you get your, just know that, like, let it settle. Honestly, this is perfectly timed. It's just an opportunity to let things settle and not have all the answers right away.
That's true. Because this is where the mind stops pushing
Right.
for answers and pushing us to analyze and pushing us to do things, and starts listening.
Yeah.
Really starts to, set back and feel the feels and listen to your intuition, even maybe hearing your intuition, that's been kind of drowned by all of the logical energy of the Aquarian stellium that's been with us for a good chunk of time. So if we look at this whole first week of February then, and we try to integrate, what are we, moving through this first week? There isn't necessarily resolution to the longstanding problems of the world, or, even in your own life, but there is the possibility that you're becoming aware of new solutions, of new ways of behaving, or new ways of looking at, the things that have been going on in your life. And you're really learning about where your emotional truth needs more space, right? Where you've got to kind of detach a bit from the mind and get more into the heart, more into the body, more into the emotion of everything, right?
Well done.
All right, let's go into week 2. Week 2 begins with Venus moving into from Aquarius, moving. No, I'm sorry. It starts with
squaring with Uranus.
Squaring Uranus. So we had Mercury square Uranus. Now we are going to have Venus, and Venus rules some of the very things that Uranus and Taurus is representing: the financial system, money, economy, your relationships and love, and how we interact, with one another.
Yeah.
So this is the values shock, I guess, of the month, where, because of the things that Venus governs, we have to take a look at our relationships. We have to look at our self-worth. I forgot about that. Self-worth and value,
Absolutely. Personal value.
Right? And then Uranus always disrupts whatever has grown rigid in your life or grown stale, because he's a liberator. He's the awakener. So maybe there can be unexpected financial news, maybe in the outer world, right? The economy, maybe numbers come out that really are shocking one way or the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know necessarily how that's going to look, but maybe in your personal life, even there are sudden expenses or sudden windfalls. We don't know exactly how that's going to be. Surprising opportunities, maybe, to do something or be something. Maybe, and this is a good one, the realization that something you've been investing your time, your money, or your energy into no longer aligns with your values. And I think that's what some of the people that you and I have been talking to this week and last week, actually for this whole year so far, are saying,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're asking ourselves, what am I valuing out of habit rather than truth?
I
What am I
love
just
that
doing?
question. That's such a deep question for people because a lot of times we move through life out of habit. This is a perfect question for people. I hope everybody writes that one down.
Yeah, I'll say it again. What am I valuing out of habit rather than truth? Because the truth of it is, and I'm just going to share a little bit about, we were talking behind the scenes about what have I learned, some of the things that have come to me since I've been down with this knee issue. And one of them is about how easily business people get pulled into the algorithms on
Mm,
Facebook or Instagram or any of those places that tell you, you have to do all of these things and be all of these things in order to get seen, heard, valued, recognized.
yeah.
And the untruth that is simply that is that may be true for some people.
I think that is remarkable. I'm glad you brought it up. And really quickly, my word for one of my 2 words for the year is analog. I'm tired of the whole having to do this and do that online. My eyes are burning and tired, and my vision is, decreasing because I'm online too much. Analog is my word for the year. Not long after I picked that word, all the trends for 2026 started coming out, and I started paying attention. And everybody, like across the planet, is seeking things that are handmade and human touch,
Ah,
analog.
yes.
Isn't
Yeah.
that very interesting? That's just a little side note to astrology.
Yeah. But we live astrology.
Yeah,
That's it.
we do.
And my word for the year was space. And
Mm,
I think that was coming up even before the year
yeah.
started. But to me, space meant the space to be nothing, no
More
thing.
Janet? More Janet?
Yeah. And I just love that word. So I love your word too. So I guess what, Venus squaring Uranus can really bring us to is the more willing that we are to adapt and to
Mm,
reframe the contracts and agreements in our relationships, and relationships, of all kinds, not just your marriage or your significant others, but all of your relationships,
yeah,
the easier this energy moves through you, right?
yeah.
It doesn't
Absolutely.
come as a shock if you're able to stand up and say, this is what's right for me, right? This is where I want to be.
Yeah.
All right. Then on the 10th, just 2 days later, Venus moves into Pisces. You sense a shift happening in the whole of the energy, right? It's all starting to move out of the sign, with the exception of Pluto, out of the sign of Aquarius and headed toward the deeper waters of Pisces. And just like Mercury did, the previous week, the tone changes immediately with Venus in Pisces, kind of softens up everything,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even dissolves the hard lines, right? Helps us to, liquefy some of those edges, and invites us to be in the more softer energies of compassion and forgiveness and, you know, tolerance and acceptance and love, 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 love,
Love,
love.
love, 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 love. What's what I love about this transit. It's big love, and it's passionate love, and it's soft love, and it's the love that all of us need more of right now. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
And it's a great place for Venus to be in the run up to Valentine's Day, even
Sure.
though the moon on Valentine's Day is like Capricorn, I think, into Aquarius. But
Take it
the fact that the planet of love is in such a loving and consciously aware sign, I think it's apparently going to be a good Valentine's Day for all of us. But there's the jolt of Uranus still, right? We still have to contend with that. And the ingress is coming right after that shock. So it might make it easier for you, like an emotional balm to balm, not bomb, to to
What a nice play on words.
right, to whatever landed, with that square. But now you get to reconnect with what truly matters. Where's your heart? Reconnect to the heart. Like just doing the things that make you happy and allowing feelings to guide your decisions, but without the knee jerk, right? Without the reactivity of some of the things that happen when we get shocked by Uranus. And remember that worth is not something that you earn. It is intrinsic. You have intrinsic value, and that it's something that you come to remember that's true about you or for you. It's not something you go out and do. You can't like build intrinsic value because it's already there. It's intrinsic. It's within.
You are worthy just for having been born on this planet. And it's a
Yeah.
hard thing to remember for some people, to be honest.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
interestingly, this is heart-led energy, not market-led energy. So
Mm.
in a way, it really brings us to remember that, it's, you can buy people flowers and candy or send them cards and so forth. But if you're doing that perfunctorily and not with heart, it's
Mm.
meaningless.
Right.
Right. So putting meaning, even, just drawing a simple card rather than going out and getting the canned card, if you will. And there's nothing wrong with those. So don't get me wrong. Because sometimes I'll spend an hour looking at all the cards until I find the one with the right sentiment that I really want. But that, it's heart. It's about the heart, about love and, being engaged. So there we have that.
There we have that.
Right. Followed by
Friday, Saturn entering Aries. Yeah.
You know what I just realized, Tam? That's Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. Oh,
How
wow.
lucky is that? I hope.
Right. It is lucky. My grandmother told me so. Yes.
I think Friday the 13th are always lucky.
I do too.
But one thing I did not put on this calendar that everybody should be aware of for that week is that we go into the shadow period of the next Mercury retrograde.
Yes.
So just know that there could be some wonkiness starting to happen in our messaging, in our computers, in our, conversations with people. So bring up your patience, right? Bring up your ability to stay in peace, right? To stay balanced, even while things are getting unbalanced. And for God's sake, back up your laptops or your computers. Because
and your cryptocurrency.
And all your tech, back it up. And the big news, of course, that we're talking about for the 13th is that Saturn moves back into Aries. And we got a little preview of that in the late spring and early summer until he turned retrograde and moved backward. And Saturn moving into Aries begins that new chapter. It's not only just a chapter like, oh, hey, this is a new sign. This is the whole new of the zodiac, right? It's like a whole epic era, perhaps, that begins anew here. And it's one that's been years in the making, as Saturn was closing through Pisces, and what are the insights that we take away? That's a personal thing that each of you could be doing, is like, what are the insights that I've gained over the last 2.5 years of Saturn in Pisces? What have I learned about my emotional health? What have I learned about my boundaries? What have I learned about, living my life with passion and love and joy, and moving away from, some of the rigid ways that we've been living? Because Aries is a whole different animal. Right?
The opposite of Pisces.
Correct. I mean, really, we have this whole new beginning, new energy, fire energy, catalyzing energy. And this is going to be all about your identity and having the courage to live your truth and live out loud and color, within your own lines, or color outside of the lines, if that's what you want to do. Taking the initiative. And I want everybody to be so aware of the words I am. Because that's declarative, right? When you say I am,
it's creative.
It's creative. And if you follow it with words like depressed or ugly or fat or any negative words you can think of, you are declaring that to be a truth for you. Absolutely. Yes, you may feel depressed, and that's the more correct way to put that. I feel depressed. So, or I feel sad, or I feel, excited or happy. So the declarative I am, what are you claiming as your sovereignty, as your identity? So be very careful and very, very aware of what follows those two words.
I would say that, considering we're in this 10-year where manifestation is really rapid, you really do want to beware. Like, I have one of my 4 adult kids who always says, I am exhausted. And they're very dramatic in the whole body and the face and everything. And I'm like, really? That is setting yourself up for a lifetime of malaise, really. Like, watch what you say. Like, we are in a season where your manifestation is very, very quick. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And you might say, today I feel exhausted, so that it's not something that's dragging out for your whole life. Just be so aware. And even remember, there's a contraction for I am, and that's I'm,
yes,
right? So it doesn't take the power away from it just because you're using it as a contraction. So it's the I am. And so be very aware. And Saturn, of course, here asks us to, what are we willing to take responsibility for? Like, we have to take responsibility for our own position in life, for where we are, who we are with, what we are doing, and what are we willing to take responsibility for now? Because you can also rewrite the contract, and that can be something where you take a different responsibility. Like, I'm not willing to take responsibility for all of these things anymore. My new responsibility maybe is to myself, my own happiness, right? Cherishing my family or the things that I love. And then, where must action replace waiting? So now we're starting to see the engines rev a little bit toward that new zodiac year coming up, March 19th, I believe it is, March 20th, whatever the zero Aries is. So this movement of Saturn into Aries, it's preparing to meet Neptune, right? On the 13th, on the 13th, Saturn moves into Aries, and for all intents and purposes is already conjunct Neptune.
It's coming. It's like right here.
Yeah, right now. So this is the commitment point. How are you going to move your spirituality forward? Dreams that you have, or your visionary self, begins to need structure. What's the form that this next project is going to take, or your next, year is going to take? The inspiration then is asking for follow through, right? Because this is the time we're starting, I have always said January 1st is not the next time. Right. It's not the time to set resolutions and so forth, because it's a dream time that we're in. And your spiritual ideals want embodiment at this point in time. So you, in other words, walking your talk and living through yourself as spirit embodied. So this isn't going to be about charging ahead blindly, right? I'm not saying get those wheels rolling and just head off into the sunset somewhere. It's about grounded courage, the courage to take action, but grounding it in, being structured and strategic. Instead of structured, being more strategic in what it is that you're doing.
I want to add to the conversation. I want to use the word discipline.
Yes.
I think that Saturn adds discipline, and discipline and responsibility can go hand in hand, although some people do drop the ball when it comes to discipline. If you're one of those, I'm going to use Christine's word. She's like, no more Eeyore energy. And that's really a really great example. If you're working on mindset or changing behaviors, then you have to add discipline. Saturn and Aries can contribute benefically toward discipline. Buckle down, mind the way you speak, mind what you're taking action toward, time it well. This is, I think, a really key word in Saturn if you really are trying to create change in your life under this influence. Yeah.
I just got a picture in my mind of Saturn and Neptune coming together. You know how when shoes anymore, you don't always have ties, but remember tying your shoe, and then 5 minutes later you're walking out the door and it's untied and you're like, what the heck? That's Saturn Neptune, right? You get the structure all in, and then Neptune undoes it, and you got to do it again, and then a mile you've walked, and then you look down and that same shoe is untied again. That's Saturn and Neptune, right? The structure's formed, it's there, but then Neptune says, let's reevaluate, right? Let's reconstruct. Are you sure you really want that? And then you retie, re-strategize, restructure, and then Neptune. And this is, going to take place until Saturn actually moves beyond the conjunction, he's the faster moving planet. It'll still take, several weeks, if not a couple of months before we get beyond, the conjunction. But that may be, like the best laid plans go awry, right? But it's a process that is always, we're in process of rebuilding. And so, that week too of February really reminds us that we're revaluing things and we are softening our energy. We are choosing a truer starting point for us for the year, right? Because the year truly hasn't really even begun at this point.
Right.
And you're letting yourself move forward gently, but deliberately, disciplined, like
Mm.
responsibly. And something meaningful is beginning to take shape as we move through the end of the second week of February, which means we're moving into the third week of February.
There you go.
That's the my
15th.
my computer keeps going into timeout mode, and then all of a sudden I'm like looking at this weird pattern. Okay, so February 15th.
Yep.
Uh,
The sun
now
squares Uranus.
the sun is squaring Uranus.
Yeah.
So this is the light of our essence, and it comes into this challenge with the planet of awakening, of shock and awe, of liberation. And the sun represents our identity and our vitality and our conscious direction. And then Uranus disrupts it, right? It says that something's got to change, perhaps, and that can be restlessness. We feel restless. Maybe we feel impatient, like, can't we just get this going? Can't we just get over this? And the urge to break free is very powerful with the sun here. And it's, especially from anything that suddenly feels too small. Right. I know I'm gonna have to break away from this desk that week, right? Because it feels too small when I'm sitting here.
Yep.
And now that I can get more, maybe I get more walking in, right? Get rid of my crutches. And that's the possibility, right? That we're breaking free from something. And rather than reacting with impatience or that restlessness, ask yourself questions like, well, something must be ready to evolve. If you are a generator or manifesting generator, a part of the signature of that type in human design is frustration. And frustration is often a signal that things are about to change or morph. And okay, but don't react badly to it. Just wait and see what is happening in the outer world for you to respond to. And about 70% of you out there are going to be manifesting generators or generators. So you're waiting. You have to wait. The frustration tells you it's about to shift. But if there's nothing in that outer world yet for you to move toward, you have to wait. You have to be patient just a little bit longer. But also, what truth can no longer be ignored? Because it's getting real now, right? This is the third pass of the square of inner planets to Uranus. So it's getting real.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay. What about the new moon? That's our next thing, right?
More big news, because we know these eclipses are going to create a change for all of us, no matter what. I mean, and here, a new moon cycle. So, wow, what door is opening?
I'm going to open up the
look at this chart. I was blown away. I have all of my charts from the writing last year. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Check.
Yeah. I printed all of these. So easy, right? To go into this. So I want to talk about this chart first, because do you see a pattern in this chart?
Yeah. It's loaded on the other
bottom.
side. Yeah, at the bottom.
Yeah, it's all loaded at the bottom. Now, in your own personal chart, it could be loaded, on the right hemisphere, left hemisphere, southern hemisphere. But for the collective, as we look at this, the chart is loaded in what is called the northern hemisphere of the chart. Now, the northern hemisphere of the chart really is all about the individual, right? This is, so it's important to note this pattern. This is about, who you are becoming. And we're not talking about the new moon specifically yet. We're talking about the fact that the new moon and all of the planets basically are down in this northern hemisphere, prompting us to really ask questions about what values are shaping our lives, because this new moon is a new beginning. So if you want to begin something, if you want to set an intention for something to become, you have to really be willing to ask yourself, what values shape your sense of self now? And what can you no longer carry forward? What are you leaving behind? And this is intentional, right? So that tells us the focus is not necessarily out on the public yet. So this is maybe personal. subjective identity forming. It's not yet clear, what that new moon may be bringing you to. And even with the fact that, Aquarius and Pisces are involved, this eclipse is really working from the inside out, right? It's, January was very much about the outside world and what was happening out there, creating the, unfortunately, reactions from within, right? From people. But now this energy seems to say that it's all coming from the inside, right? So we're reforming ourselves on the inside and then setting up for what becomes our identity in the outer world. And if you look here, you see the new moon is at 28 degrees, 50 minutes of Aquarius. So we're closing in on the ending of the sign.
Right.
So the lessons of Aquarian, future orientation, detachment, aloofness, objectivity, group thinking, collectivity, are coming to a crucible. It's coming to a point. And Mars is still there. Pluto, of course, still there. And there is still this focus on Aquarian energy. So wherever Aquarius is in your chart now has another big aha moment. And then add that this is an eclipse.
Right.
And what do we know about eclipses?
They're changing. They're shifting us. They're creating a big change is the only word I can come up with.
Game changers. That's how I always like to think about it.
Game changers. I love that. I'm going to borrow that. Good.
Please do. I mean, I borrowed it from someone else, I'm sure. So eclipses, and this is a solar eclipse, everybody. So because the sun and moon are in a conjunction, this is a solar eclipse. And a solar eclipse is a door opener. So we think of the lunar eclipse as something that is revealed, that's something that's come to completion. And then the solar eclipse is always, well, what's opening up? And it's different right now because the solar eclipse is coming before the lunar eclipse. So we don't know yet necessarily what it is we'll have to release with the March lunar eclipse. But we can say for sure at this point, some little window is opening, that something is shifting. And it might just be in humanity because it's Aquarian energy, maybe a collective heart opening. I mean, who knows? It could mean a lot of different things for us, right? I really feel like, I feel like somehow we managed to get through January, or hopefully we get through January, even though it's still a few days away, without really setting off a civil war, a literal war.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say some of the things that have been going on have been battles, heading toward that. But suddenly it looks like some cooler heads may be prevailing.
Right.
And that gives me such hope that some of this Aquarian energy of how we care for ourselves and how we care for humanity, others in our worlds, is coming to the surface. And I think this new moon might really help us with that because it's a doorway and it's a choice that we make to walk through that doorway. Do we become more humane, more humanitarian, more willing to do the things that support the group? Or are we going to take that Aries energy of sovereignty and identity and, become selfish and more, self-oriented? So that's a big question. I don't know that it has an answer. And I think that's going to be up to each one of us during this moon. I also noted right here because look at Neptune and Saturn. Neptune is at 0 degrees 39 minutes, Saturn at 0 degrees 23 minutes. They're so close to that conjunction that actually happens in that same week. So like one of the big news things is going to be their conjunction of that week. But before we get there, we get through that new moon, which, by the way, is on February 17th at 7:02 a.m. East Coast time. That'll make it at 4 a.m. West Coast time. And this is a North Node eclipse, meaning it sets up a theme for the future, for the direction that we're headed to, as opposed to tying us to the past of the South Node, right? So I was heartened to see that as well. But you can see the North Node is at 8 degrees of Pisces. So it's not a very close solar eclipse. In fact, this is a partial solar eclipse, but I don't think partial is how we will feel it. Oh, your sound is muted.
I agree with you, what you said there. And oh, it's gone. Sorry about that. Never mind.
Okay, partial. I said partial, so I don't think it's going to be like
I was thinking that you said a few minutes ago that you were feeling hopeful, that we're not going to go into a civil war. Maybe this North Node being so close connected to this, maybe we all have the right to feel hopeful about the direction our world will take.
Right. And those nodes are across Virgo and Pisces. And what did we just say about Pisces? It's compassion, it's empathy, it's tolerance and acceptance, and, love, love, spiritual love, the higher values. So I do think we have reason to be a little bit hopeful, although there's still a lot of chess pieces that have to fall, I think.
Right. A lot to work out.
Yeah, there's still a lot to go.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I don't know how we're doing time-wise.
Not very good.
Well, let's do it quicker. The next day after the solar eclipse, the sun moves into Pisces. So now we have the light, our essence, in that compassionate, loving, spiritual sign. Maybe it's time for us, to reflect on where we've been before we go full on into where we're going. Maybe it's time for emotional integration, because a lot's been happening. Either it's happening in the collective and you're feeling it, or it's maybe happening in your own personal life and you're feeling it definitely. A spiritual recalibration. I love the sun in Pisces for that, recalibrating. This sun moving through Pisces, is a closing of the year. It's a close. It's the true close of the astrological year. And maybe this becomes a moment for you to listen more deeply to yourself, to your inner self. Right? Anything you want to add to that?
No, beautifully said.
Nice. Now we come to the culmination point, February 20th. I'm going to go back to our little calendar, because now we have the exact conjunction. And I almost feel like this is a non-event event.
That's so interesting. Every astrologer out there is talking about, this is a big deal. And you're like, nope.
Well, it is a big deal, but it's been conjunct already for so long, right?
Yeah.
Just not exact at the same degree. We've already been feeling the newness of these two coming together, of this new era, epic, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
These two conjunct each other every 36 years. So, 36 years ago, put us in the 90s and in the early 90s. And, that was a tumultuous time, change happening in the different governments around the world and things like that. So, we already had this energy start up last fall or last spring, and then it kind of subsided somewhat. And now here we come back to the exact conjunction. Do I think something big is happening that day? I think something big is already happening.
I agree. I think it's already in the works. I agree.
So while it's momentous that the two are at the same degree, at the same moment in time, it's already been in process, right? Yeah. One more thing I meant to tell you about the solar eclipse is that you may already be feeling the energy of this newness, because it typically begins about 3 weeks before the eclipse. And then, most intense the next 2 or 3 weeks after that eclipse, but you can feel the impacts of eclipses all the way till the next eclipse, which won't be until August, right? August. Just had to bring that up. Okay, so Saturn conjunct Neptune, a culmination point of this energy that we've been talking about. Well, heck, 2 years ago, we started really talking about this conjunction that was upcoming. And this is where identity and sovereignty and your personal self becomes meets responsibility of you being part of a collective.
Yeah.
And where belief meets courage, right? I have these beliefs, these Neptunian, ideas of who I am, and now I have to have the courage to express them. Where inspiration now wants to become embodied, to be expressed. So it's not about the ideals purely anymore. It'll be about living what you believe, living your truth, living out loud, right? Living your astrology.
Yeah.
And, the question then for everybody is going to be something like, what am I willing to stand up for? What am I willing to take responsibility for in my own life? Some people, those of you that are younger than 50, you haven't come yet to your Chiron return. And so there may be some of these wounding things that are going on that maybe you're like, oh, now I'm starting to see this pattern of these things in my life. And those of us that are over 50 and have lived through the Chiron return, we're all like, yeah, well, I was responsible for that, right? I'm taking responsibility for the things that have gone on in my life. So it's an open invitation for us, I think, to really walk through this next time period with some clarity. I still think it's a work in progress, as we really determine what does it mean to be an embodied spirit, to be the embodiment of the divine, to, walk the walk and talk the talk. What do you think?
I think it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of personal responsibility. It is going to be a work in progress for a long while for a lot of us. And thankfully, Neptune is in Aries till 2038.
Yeah.
And Saturn, if we buckle down, I'm telling people, like, if we buckle down over the next couple of years, we can embody it. It will give us the oomph we need to walk our talk, to do what we need to do in our life.
Yeah.
But it's going to take some time. We require the pressure of Saturn to do this, I think.
I think we do. And I think Neptune ensures that systems are going to break and fall. And that becomes an invitation to rebuild or to realign. In fact, I would say that whole week of February is really about realignment, because we don't have certainty yet. All we can keep doing is realigning, moving, strategizing into, the purest expression of ourselves, the highest expression of love that we can as humans on this planet. And some of this work is happening below the surface and quietly. And I think Saturn's being part of it is also going to show us sometimes that it's outward and it's heavy and it's long, a change that's long overdue, right? A change we didn't know we needed, nor did we think we wanted, but here it is. Change. So it's a big day. However, I don't think it is something that can be encapsulated in just the day. I think it's something we've been living for a while, and maybe just crystallizing into some more clarity as time goes on here. And then in the last few minutes here, week 4 is Mercury retrograde. That has not been on my radar.
Oh.
When I was writing out the calendar for us yesterday, I'm like, Mercury retrograde, of course it's coming. And that'll happen on the 25th. And Mercury is retrograde for about 3 weeks. And then he turns into the shadow period. So we still have, some time after to straighten things out. So really, literally as we get to the new astrological year, we are moving out of that Mercury retrograde and out of that shadow and starting something new. And this is going to be a retrograde of intuition over logic. He starts out in Pisces. This will be reflection over reactions, right? Being very much more spiritually aware and much more peacefully aware, because it then also becomes emotional truth over that mental certainty. Like, we cannot be certain of anything at this point. So what do we expect? Foggy thinking. Maybe scattered, maybe vivid dreams, right? And you're symbolic, highly symbolic. Maybe memories resurfacing for you to take a look at and to reevaluate. Maybe conversations with people that you had, 6 months ago or last Mercury retrograde that come back, for clarity at this point in time. So this won't be a time to force decisions. Again, we're still in this, dream time, quiet time. We're starting to get clarity. And then Mercury goes retrograde. And you're like, oh.
I'm laughing because it's going retrograde the same day that you and I will have our next podcast. So you can expect some clunky computer business going on.
Aren't we lucky? Maybe it won't. Maybe it won't happen because...
Sure, Janet, sure.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to say that. Never mind that Mercury in Pisces is squaring my own sun.
Oh.
Yeah, well, from afar. But anyway. But Mercury the next day, or no, Mercury 2 days later, comes into a conjunction with Venus. And but that also happens to be the same day that Mars squares Uranus. So I feel like I don't know if that day should be part red, part green. You know how we have our calendar that shows part red, part green.
Right.
Because Mars in Aquarius is going to square Uranus, and that is often a final jolt. Well, this is a final jolt because it's the last of the inner planets to square Uranus for the month. And he pushes for aligned action, right?
Mhm.
This is what Mars is pushing for.
Yeah.
Future focused courage. If you're looking ahead, you have to have the courage to take that next step, and you only have to take the first step. You don't have to get to the end point yet.
Right.
Conversations around future, around the actions that you may want to take, collective oriented change.
Mm.
I just wonder, right? Because Mars and squaring Uranus is second to Mars conjunct Pluto, which we've already had in terms of danger and
Mhm.
explosions. And, in this case, it turned out to be an attack against humanity.
Mhm.
And maybe Mars squaring Uranus gives us a new direction, a new way to deal with humanity and humanitarianism.
Mm.
So we will see.
Yep.
The square can be very impulsive because it's born out of restlessness or rebellious energy. Maybe you have the strong desire to act now, but I would encourage every one of you to be patient, to live through your type and strategy if you know your human design, and be very aware of how that works for you, how you make the best decisions. And then the softness returns that same day. So I feel like, yeah, on one hand, it's volatile, but on the other hand, we've got a softening agent in there. It's like, your hard water. When you put the Culligan man in there, you get softer water. And it could be one of the sweetest moments of the month, right? To have, that Mercury and Venus together,
Sure.
with heartfelt conversations or
Softening things, right?
reconciliation is another word that came up for me as I was looking at this. And there's a lot that needs to be reconciled, I think, in this world. Compassion for others and for yourself, but also remembering what truly matters, what matters most. On Monday, when I did my show, I talked a lot about love because love is the answer. It always is.
Mm.
And everything that isn't love is usually coming up from fear, a fear, many kinds of fears of rejection, of not being loved, of not being, not belonging and being marginalized and things like that. So this is a big energy then for us to remember that love is always the answer.
Mm.
So February doesn't really end with any kind of certainty. Like, I don't feel like I'll know exactly what I'm doing, where I'm going in February. It kind of ends with us attuning, right? With attuning to, well, what's opening up and what direction am we moving in? Because I don't think we're meant to rush forward yet.
No, I think that's true. I think I think it's April, we have a whole bunch of planets in Aries, and by then we might know where we're going. And there's the front of the new year anyway, right?
Yeah.
March 19th, we have the spring equinox, and then we move into the true new year. And of course, perfectly timed. We'll have all that Aries energy. I think we have to roll with things. I think maybe, get into our heart. Don't be reactive. Don't jump into things. Take it easy. We've got time. The new year hasn't begun yet.
Yeah, it hasn't even started yet. So I feel like February teaches us that the real change in the world and in our own personal lives doesn't always shout at us. Sometimes it's an opening bit by bit that allows us to wait and to listen for the next steps and then to take the action. So I think what February offers us is my word for the year and your word for the year: space and analog. Getting away from the tech, right?
Yeah.
Space to breathe, space to feel, and maybe to notice where you've been reacting rather than responding in your life, right?
Yes.
So as those inner planets square Uranus one after another, like I said, this is the big arc of the storyline this month. It's not chaos just for the sake of chaos. It's really a message that says what can no longer hold has to change. Right. If it's not sustainable, you have to let it go. So tend to your nervous system this month.
Yes.
Stay connected to your values and redefine them if you must. Act consciously rather than impulsively. And remember that your presence matters in the world, in the larger field of collectivity, right? You may not feel like you can offer much in terms of what's, say, going on in Minneapolis, but you can hold the value of love and peace in you and that rolls off of you and offers that up to the world, the people around you. So luckily, February doesn't make anything worse. I think in a way it helps us to get some focus, to get some peace, to get some heart and love going.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. Any final words that you want to share?
Not about the month. I think we really covered it really, really beautifully. I do want to take a minute, if you will have it, to talk about the digital energy almanac.
Definitely. Yes. Yes.
So if you haven't gone to get your free weekly predictions from the Energy Almanac, go to theenergyalmanac.com and look what I did today. I printed out the pages for January, February, March. Whoops, I don't know how to do this here. Maybe back here. Anyway, and I colored it. Yahoo! And I just printed out the pages that have the fun.
Oh, okay. Like the yeah,
the illustration. So you can actually color that in, like spend some time coloring it. You have a nice page, you have your do and your do not. And then I actually went and I did the actual predictions for the week so that I can underline, I can make notes. I use this like a journal. So
do you have the link for people to go get that? If they haven't already downloaded it?
theenergyalmanac.com, and you'll see 4 different listings. One of them that says free digital almanac, I think is what it says.
Theenergyalmanac.com.
Mm-hmm.
And hold on while my computer decides it's going there.
Yeah. And you'll see the word that says free.
It says Energy Almanac and free digital here. Let me see if I can bring it up and then share my screen once before we leave.
Oh, that would be great. And then for those who still need your full book, here it is. It's so beautiful. It's on Amazon, and we have just a few left of these coil bound, not a ton, but enough that I can fulfill a few orders if you need to have a coil bound book.
And here is the link. I'm going to share that with everybody. And then I'm going to share my screen so that share screen. There we go. And the window, no, Chrome tab. There we go. Boom. This is what it looks like.
We're looking at your calendar.
You should not be looking at my calendar.
We're looking at your calendar.
How can you be looking at my calendar?
I'm just telling you.
Just saying. Oh, that calendar. I got to stop. We got to remove that. There we go. I almost removed you. Oh my goodness. So, well, I gave you guys the link.
Yeah. There we go. So Mercury
Retrograde
is definitely occurring.
There we go. I can show the link on this screen for those of you who need it. You can follow that link, get your free bridge or the digital copy of that. It's January, February, and the first 3 weeks of March. And then buy your copy of the Energy Almanac. It should be available on that same page. Right?
It is. It's available right there. Yeah.
There we go.
So printing it out is really fun. I actually really like this.
I'm going to do that. I don't know how many pages that was, but I, in my convalescence here, bought myself new gel coloring pens.
Nice.
So there's like 80 pens. I'm going to color. I'm going to
get in there and color. I just selected which pages I wanted. You don't have to print the whole thing because that would be, 30 pages if you print the whole thing. So.
Yeah, it's fine. I have lots of printing time.
Okay.
Space.
We'll have fun with that. Thank you, everybody. This has been so nice to be back together. My heart was all happy while we were doing this. I'm like, oh, this feels so good.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I didn't get to say good morning to all of you, but trust me, good morning. I love you all. See you on Friday. Tam, talk to you soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye for now.